welcome to a TMC video podcast. My name is Rich Tehrani. Today is the 16th of April 2009, the day after Tax Day, and we'll be speaking today with the founder of Vidtel, Scott Wharton, who is also the CEO. Scott, how are you?
I'm great. How are you, Rich?
I'm doing very well, and why don't we get started right away, since we're actually using Vidtel's network for this conversation. Tell us a little bit about Vidtel, please.
So Vidtel is a service provider and a pure play focused on video telephony for consumers and small businesses. And the idea behind the company is if you look at video today for telephony, there's really two markets for an extreme. There's a high-end market, room-based video conferencing. If you only have $500,000, you can get a Cisco telepresence system. And then on the other extreme, you have the free PC-based offerings like Skype and Yahoo and so on. And I saw an opportunity to have a service that would be somewhere in the middle for the rest of us. So easy to use, higher quality, and mainstream. Just basically works like a telephone. In fact, it is a telephone. That's what we're talking on now.
Fantastic. So if you were to detail your target audience, who would that be?
So we're going after a couple of market segments. So one would be higher-end consumers that have family distributed around the country or the world and want to use video as a way of keeping in touch with their friends and family and would like it to be easy to use. And then secondly, we're going after companies that have small, medium companies that have distributed employees, distributed businesses where they keeping in touch and being able to have facial expressions and human emotion content beyond voice is important.
And I should mention, as a Vidtel user, that I found the experience to be quite good, especially for situations where it doesn't, I guess a standalone camera with a PC or a laptop doesn't make any sense. It's been really easy to use this service because the video is integrated right into the phones and you don't have to deal with opening special software, connecting USB cameras and things like that. So I've been a happy user now for how long have you been in beta now or out of beta? 6 months?
We launched our service at a soft launch in December.
Okay, great. So why don't we go over the pricing?
Okay. So the basic idea is to price our service very similar to what people expect for a telephone service. So currently we have two pricing plans. So one of them is $29.95 a month, and what that includes is unlimited voice calling, so you can call anybody with their regular phone in North America, long distance. You also get a telephone number, E911, call waiting, call forwarding, and then you get unlimited video calling, so call anyone on the Vidtel network. You get to have video mail. And we also, so the idea behind that pricing plan is that really it can replace your phone service. It's the same or less as what most people pay for their phone service, but you get video also. And then we have a $14.95 plan. So basically includes all that unlimited video calling, and if you want to make a call to the regular phone network, it's 3.9 cents a minute. And that's for people who want to use more for video or use it as a low-second telephone line.
Great. Now, why do you think now is the time for video?
I think there's part of life in every business is timing. And part of the reason why we started the business now is we saw a bunch of trends that were really coming together. One of them was having enough bandwidth at the home to have high-quality broadband, have high-quality video conversations. A lot of the earlier attempts at video try to stick video over very narrow 64K pipes, and it just wasn't sufficient quality or enough bandwidth to have video. The second thing is we looked at the market, and only 2-3 years ago, video phones were $800 when AT&T launched this in the mid-90s. They were a mere $2,500, really out of the mainstream. And then we saw the opportunity to launch a video phone that was $199.95, more for the mainstream audience. And then the third thing is the ability to take some standard infrastructure. So we're basically leveraging things like my old employer's technology at BroadSoft and other pieces, and then take all of those pieces and put them together and make it into a very easy-to-use, simple service. So part of what our goal is to take all of these pieces and technology and focus on the user experience by making it much easier than it's ever been.
Now, we've obviously been promised video technology for many decades. Do you really think you're going to deliver on the promise now, and if so, how?
Well, I think part of it illustrates we're delivering on it right this very minute, the fact that we're talking to each other over our network, and you're in Connecticut and we're in California. So I think the timing is definitely here. And part of what we've observed is that if you look at Moore's Law and how it applies to video, everything is going to get better, faster, cheaper. So the experience that we have right now is going to get better and better over time. The other thing that we know just from looking at the market is that, well, a few things. One is video is really booming at the extremes. So telepresence and high-end video conferencing is growing so fast that allegedly Cisco can't build the equipment fast enough. On the low-end side, we know that companies Skype report that 30% of all of their calls now come from video. But still, if you look at the universe of people that are actually using video, it's very, very small, probably less than 1%. And I think what that means is, as good as and as interested as people are in video, the mainstream and most of us are not using this on a day-to-day basis. We think it's a huge opportunity to go to the other 99% of users and bring them more of a telephony experience, but with video.
Sure.
The other thing that's interesting is we think about it, people who have gone to independent voice over IP companies and abandoned either the cable companies or the regular phone companies, very small. So to put it in perspective, less than 3 million users have gone to Vonage for voice over IP to save money, whereas most users today continue to stay with a fixed line, over 100 million on the regular phone companies. And I think what that tells me is that people are much less price sensitive to shift the voice over IP. In fact, where those people are going are more to spend more money on things like the iPhone and higher end mobile plans. So I think what we take away from that is people are less likely to want to save money. They actually want to spend more and get a better experience.
Right. Now, you mentioned Skype a little bit earlier. I'm curious, why would people use your service instead of Skype, or maybe, let's say, a Packet 8 video service?
Well, let's take one of them at a time. If to go back in history a little bit, I actually started with the first voice over IP company called Vidtel, and we invented the first soft client that was like Skype, where people could, as we said, talk for free over the internet. And at the time, there were a lot of smart people who said, if you use a telephone anymore and you pay for it, you're really stupid, because you can just get your computer and you can hook up a headset and you can talk for free. Now, if you fast forward 14 years later, we realize that most people on a day-to-day basis, they don't use their computer for voice. They actually pay for voice in some level, whether it's on their cell phone or their work phone or home. And the reason why they do that, I believe, is that people are not stupid. They're just, they're willing to pay $20, $30, $40, $50 for convenience and quality, mobility. And some people will certainly use a computer when it's appropriate, let's say for avoiding international calls. But I think for the most part, people pay for quality and convenience. So I think you'll see some very similar things on the video side. That certainly, there's a room in the market for people to use their computers for video, but I think the fact that we have a device like this that's always on and high-quality e-use will appeal to people. Now, having said that, part of our strategy is to be able to make sure that video you can call any device. So our vision is that we'll be able to call not only people on video phones like this, but higher-end video phones like the Polycom one that we announced, or Skype or Google, or any video device out there. Now, that'll take a while to achieve that vision, but the idea is that we're not trying to build another proprietary network. We're trying to build a network that's open, and some people want to use computers, some will want to use phones like this, some will want to use mobile phones, and our vision is that we want to be able to link them together.
Now, do you think that we have the consumer behavior there to support mass adoption of video phone use?
I think what we've seen from our experience so far with our customer base is that people really like this experience of emulating a telephone. They like the fact that there's nothing to configure, that when we ship out a device, the beauty of it is that they literally plug a cord into the power outlet, plug one Ethernet jack into their router, and then it just magically works. And then in terms of the user behavior, what we find is, because this really works like a telephone, there are all sorts of people who wouldn't ordinarily make a video call, or there are groups of people that wouldn't do it. Let's say grandparents and older people or young kids are now using it because they, like my son goes, "Daddy, duh, it's just a telephone. Of course I know how to use it."
That's great. So if you were to look at the small business segment, let's say a small business that has remote offices or telecommuters, how do you see them taking advantage of your service?
Well, I'll give you an example. I was talking to a fellow tenant in the office that I'm in, and they have a distributed workforce like many companies do these days. And their comment to me was, I think one that we all relate to, saying, Scott, there's this idea of having distributed workforces, but distributed workforces where you never see each other communicate, it just doesn't work. And I think we all know the fact that United Airlines is still in business. People spend a lot of money getting on planes to see people. And that's an important part of the experience. We can't all just work at home. We have to see each other, interact at trade shows like Internet Telephony Expo. So
thanks for the plug, by the way.
So this is really just an extension of that. So given the fact that you only have 2 shows a year, I still need to be able to keep in touch with all the people that I meet that aren't in Miami and LA. So this allows me to keep in touch with people around the world. Now getting back to this other client, what they said is, look, we have people distributed all over the world, and if they're just isolated and we only talk to them on the phone, we can't really run our business. We need to see them.
Right. Now, if you can segue back to the baby boomer generation that we talked about a little bit earlier, was part of the reason for you designing your service to be able to communicate with that group of people using video or facilitating their use of video?
Well, there were a couple of user scenarios that were very personal to me. So my family and my wife's family are distributed around the U.S., and we, like many people, we have young kids and older parents that live in a different state. So we were trying to often use video with our parents, but my parents are not the most technically literate. They can do email, but that's probably just about it. And as much as we asked them and talked about using video, we never really seemed to do it. When we introduced the Vidtel service, pre-Vidtel, I wanted to use it first and see if I didn't use it myself, then I didn't think it would be a good business to share with others. And what we found is that my parents loved it. In fact, when my mother first started using this, she literally started crying because she could see her grandkids. And what we find is, maybe a crazy statistic, but about 1 out of every 5 Vidtel users cries.
Wow.
When they first use this, because they can't believe that. They've been told that it's going to work for so long, and here it is, and it's actually, the Jetsons is here today.
And we should clarify those are tears of joy, correct?
Those are tears of joy.
Just wanted to make sure that everyone who's watching this understands that. So, Scott, I've got 2 parts to a question I want to ask you. You're obviously a visionary in the communication space, having gone back to the early days of voice over IP back with Vocaltech in the late 90s when most people didn't even know that this was going to become an industry. You were at a company that developed a 2-pronged strategy to not only have a soft phone, but also a gateway allowing carriers and ITSPs and other entrepreneurs to become internet telephony service providers. So you've obviously been in the market for a while. So the first part of my question is, with that knowledge, where do you think the communications market is going next? And then the second part of my question is, what can we expect from Vidtel as well going into the future?
Well, I kind of feel like the industry is at a crossroads today, where voice over IP has had a promise in 2 different areas. So one promise would be to lower the cost of infrastructure and telephone calling, and the other was to provide a better experience and allow people to do more things. And I think the industry has done very well at succeeding at lowering the costs for everyone. I mean, people don't remember, but not too long ago, I remember in the early days of Vocaltech, international calls were $4 a minute, and now most people can do it for pennies or almost free. So I feel like I was part of a movement that allowed people around the world to basically almost have unlimited communication. So from that perspective, I think from an engineering perspective, we were able to, basically align everyone around the world and allow them to talk to each other. I think the industry has done a relatively poor job at delivering a better experience to end users. And I think part of the reason for that is that when you look at most of the big service providers, they see themselves really still in the voice business. I like to joke that when I was at BroadSoft, a lot of people would say to me with respect to video, "You don't understand, Scott, we do voice. We do horse and buggies. We don't do cars." And I think what they didn't realize is that video would become, I believe, will become bigger communications, because people don't only want cheaper communications. We've kind of reached the point and the limit where it doesn't matter that much anymore. They want something better. And I think better could be the idea of unified communications for a business, taking video and voice and email and bringing them together. But I think part of our strategy is just to take something very basic to human nature, the the ability to see someone, and really focus on solving that problem and making it easy to use. And I think one other thought on that for the communications business, we like to come up with new technologies and throw out a lot of bells and whistles for people. And I think there are a lot of companies that have been misunderstood in the tech industry, but then went on to be successful. So whether it's Apple with the iPod, or TiVo with VCRs, or the flip camcorder, these companies were made fun of when they said, "Hey, you took features away. What are you doing? How come you didn't add more features?" And yet they went on to confound their specific industries by revolutionizing them, not by adding more, but by actually taking things away and making it easier. And part of our philosophy is, yeah, you can add lots of bells and whistles and make it expensive, but at the end of the day, if you can just make the simple function of allowing someone to call someone as easy as possible and see them, then I think you have an almost unlimited opportunity to grow that.
That makes really good sense. Thanks, Scott. I really appreciate your time. We've been speaking with Scott Wharton, who is the founder and the CEO of Vidtel. My name is Rich Tehrani, and this is a TMC/TMCnet video podcast. The date is the 16th of April 2009. Thank you so much for watching, and Scott, thank you as well for your time today.
Great. Thank you very much, Rich, and look forward to seeing you soon.
Sounds great. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.